Welcome back to another episode of today. I'm excited to talk about some of my top client wins from 2024. And we'll dive through some of their stories. Hopefully you take some insights from it and maybe it inspires you to buy your own house with me. 2024 was a year filled with client wins. A lot of our clients received credits from sellers. We had a lot of clients take advantage of down payment or closing cost assistance programs, and quite a few clients take advantage of non-QM, or what I like to refer as flexible financing solutions. So some of the stories that come to mind as the most memorable and the most successful are where clients really ended up in a very favorable position for one reason or another. The first one that comes to mind was a young couple purchasing a family home. It was the first home purchase that they were going to make. But they didn't have the down payment to fund down payment or the money to fund closing costs. And they didn't have anyone in their corner to guide them through the process. So I was able to meet with them in person, prepare them for the purchase, and go over a few different financing options. Now, ultimately, they were buying the property from family. So that creates a lot more flexibility within financing options because now we can do what's called a gift of equity. So we're able to essentially structure a down payment on paper, if you will, as a gift of equity from the property seller. So we were able to structure a gift of equity for them to minimize their down payment requirement. And I was also able to get them down payment assistance from a Massachusetts program. So what this meant for them in the end was they needed no money out of pocket for down payment or for closing. And they ended up being in a position where they were able to buy the interest rate down with some of this extra down payment assistance and put themselves in a great position as far as their monthly budget goes. In the end, sometimes these types of sales can be tricky because in this particular case, we had a few siblings who were joint owners of this family property, and these other siblings who were not on the original deed or original owners wanted to purchase the property. So we were able to divide up the equity interest amongst all of them, work with an attorney to make sure everyone got the proper allocation of the equity, and then in our case, applied it to our buyer's down payment with some subsidy from a down payment assistance program. So they brought no money for down payment, no money for closing costs. And to put the cherry on top, they wanted to have a monthly payment that was under $1,600 a month. And based on this structure and the price they were able to come to terms with, they achieved this goal, which in this housing market can be very difficult. And they also started with $65,000 in equity in the property above and beyond the gift of equity and down payment assistance that they received. So put themselves in a really great position and was super excited for them at the outcome that they were able to achieve. Second success story that comes to mind is a self-employed client of mine was interested in purchasing a home. However, he didn't have the income on his tax returns from the year prior that was sufficient enough to qualify him for the purchase. So in talking with him, talking through his business, we started to come up with some other solutions. The one solution that came to mind that ultimately was a fit for him was a bank statement loan program. So I was able to put him into a bank statement loan program. We analyzed the previous, in his case, 12 months worth of business bank statements. We ran a cash flow analysis to determine income from those business deposits and withdrawals. Ultimately took him from what was $30,000 or so in income up, in this case, to $80,000 to $90,000 in income, which allowed him to qualify for this home and buy a home much sooner than he was told by other lenders, which originally thought he would never be able to buy a home, or at least not until he filed 2 years worth of tax returns, or rather 2 more years worth. But in this case, we were able to find a creative solution for him, allow him to get in the house, and he ultimately closed on the house towards the end of 2024 with, again, about $15,000 in equity above the purchase price. So great win all around for this client, and was super excited to be able to find a solution for him that got him into the house that he's always wanted. The last client that comes to mind as a success story was a referral sent to me by a family friend. She was looking to purchase the condo that she currently was renting from her landlord. Now, in this particular situation, the scenario had a few moving parts, and the borrower ultimately didn't have any money set aside for down payment or closing costs, and they didn't really quite qualify. So what do we do? Well, I took a look at the scenario. I said, hey, here's a couple ideas. Ultimately came up with a plan for her to consolidate some debt. It connected her with contacts of mine to be able to consolidate some debt onto a personal loan away from some of these higher interest credit card debts, which ultimately lowered her monthly payment obligations and allowed her to qualify for more. And in the end, I was able to get her into a program that got her $25,000 in down payment and closing cost assistance, and we structured a seller credit to cover the rest of her closing costs. Now, there were no realtors involved in this transaction, so I was structuring a lot of the deal, which for me makes me that much happier when the deal works out, because going above and beyond, for clients is what gets me most excited. So we were able to consolidate some of her debt, put her in a better position from the debt perspective, which also in turn allowed her to qualify for the mortgage amount she needed, structure a seller credit to get her credits towards closing costs, and get her $25,000 in down payment assistance. So she ended up moving into the house for only $500 out of pocket. The house she already lived in, but she was able to achieve her dream of buying her first home and buying the home that she's lived in for the past few years. Was super excited for that outcome for her, and not to mention, she also started with about $10,000 in equity above and beyond what she purchased the house for. So if some of these situations resonate with you, if you're running into roadblocks trying to get financing, or you just don't feel like you have the help or guidance you need to navigate your situation, please reach out to me. I'd be more than happy to serve as a resource for you. And if for some reason I am not the one to be able to help, I definitely know someone who can. Although it's residential financing, I'm sure I'll be able to find some solution for you. So thanks again for watching, and hope to see you in the next one.